Words of Change is part of True Colors Community Conversation series, and this timely conversation is presented in partnership with Theatrical Rights Worldwide in celebration of the launch of the Next Narrative Monologue Competition, NNMC. Tonight's conversation will be moderated by True Colors Artistic Director Jamil Jude. Hi, this is Lisna Marzani, Executive Director of TRW Plays, a division of Theatrical Rights Worldwide, an innovative, on-the-rise play licensing house thriving with every opportunity presented where writers, artists, educators, agents, and theater administrators are authentically engaged to balance the integrity and demands of art with that of commerce in a dynamic, growing, and ever-changing marketplace. We are the proud publishers of Next Narrative Monologue Competition, bringing new voices, new truths, new discoveries to our broad range of customers. Through rounds of local and regional monologue competitions by contemporary Black playwrights, NNMC serves high school students by allowing them to compete for a chance to perform at the historic Apollo Theater in New York City. True Colors Community Conversations series is proudly sponsored by Brian Cave Leighton Paisner. Throughout the event, we will have performances from competitors of True Colors' previous August Wilson monologue competitions, Taloria Merricks, the 2021 national winner, and Taylor Jackson, the 2020 national runner-up. We will kick off tonight's conversation with a performance of the monologue Not Supposed To, written by Donetta Lavinia Grays and performed by Taloria Merricks. Thank you and enjoy.
Hi, my name is Taloria Merricks and I will be performing a monologue called Not Supposed To by Donetta Grays. Thank you. How I figure. Ain't got to figure. Ain't nobody got to tell me that when you walk by, the scent of your perfume, body wash, moisturizer, chewing gum, lip gloss, olive oil sheen, setting lotion, and your evening sleep falling into your morning dew ain't for me. I know it is, baby. Tell me it ain't. Nice to have something for me. Someone like you. It's nice. And trust. All this fineness, that's for you too. Man, we look good. Ain't nobody gotta tell me. I wish somebody would try to tell me you ain't for me. I bust them up real good. But, real talk, all they know is not supposed to. The world outside of me and you, not supposed to. Ain't nobody got time for a not supposed to world. Not supposed to world be having cats out here in a chokehold. Not supposed to. Dress like that, act like that, do like that, get a boo like that. Walk like that, talk like that, look like that, get shook like that. Oh, and if you love like that, get the hell out of my house. Not supposed to be on the street either, man. Not supposed to be so hungry I cough up the taste of dust and tar, roadsides, underpass, survival and strain. So hungry all I fed off is pain. Not supposed to be, but I am. So many things I ain't supposed to be. Guess being a child is another. But that school bell rang, and not supposed to supposes itself aside. Hunger makes way for possibility. And when I'm supposedly supposed to see everything that's wrong with me, supposed to be sees you instead. And sees you where you're supposed to be, right here, next to me. Ain't nobody gotta tell me that. Ain't nobody gotta tell me that when I stand close to you, I feel a root grow in the ground. And we rise up, inching closer and closer, vine-like, intertwining, interlocking, interweaving, and believing we are indestructible. That's us. Vines. And suppose it is us, set to climb, Buildings, overgates, storm castles overwhelm this place with stuff of us. So much of us that we claim it as our own, and they'll watch us make this place that ain't supposed to be our home. How I figure? How I figure ain't got to figure. I know it's mine. You. And this not supposed to world we left behind. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Please put your virtual hands together once again for Taloria Merrick's presenting that monologue by Donetta Lavinia Graves. Y'all, my name is Jamil Jude, and I have the best job in the American theater because I am the artistic director here at True Colors Theater Company. On behalf of everybody on staff at True Colors, I just want to say thank you and welcome for checking out our community conversation, Words of Change, connecting youth with tomorrow's leading voices. You all are in for an amazing and inspired conversation with some of the dopest playwrights that we have collected and collaborated with here for the next narrative monologue competition. We're going to talk several over the next several minutes about the competition, about playwriting, and about using our words to inspire social action. But without further ado, you didn't come here to hear me talk. You can hear me talk every month the True Colors podcast, but you came here to talk and listen to some amazing playwrights. So let me go ahead and do those introductions. And as I introduce each playwright, you'll see their beautiful faces populate here on your computer screen. The first is Rachel Lynette. Rachel Lynette is the 2021 recipient of the Yale Drama Prize for their play, Apologies to Lorraine Hansberry and You Too, August Wilson, and also the 2021 recipient of the National Latinx Playwriting Award for their play, Black Mexican. Please welcome Rachel Lynette. The next person I'd like to call is Mr. Jonathan Norton. Now, Jonathan's play, Penny Candy, was recently published by Deep Vellum Publishing, and Jonathan is the playwright in residence at the Dallas Theater Center. Please put your virtual hands together for Jonathan Norton. Welcome, Jonathan. And finally, Inda Craig Galvan, who has some amazing titles for her play. Her plays include Black Superhero Magic Mama. Let me say that one more time because it's really dope. Her plays include Black Superhero Magic Mama that was produced at the Geffen Playhouse, and her upcoming production in September of 2022 that will be world premiered at East West Players is entitled The Great Jerry Curl Debate. Please welcome Inda Craig Galvan.
Hello.
Well, Inda, I'm going to start with you, not just because your plays are really dope and titled, but I want to ask you first, talk to us a little bit about what led you to playwriting and what has inspired you to stay consistent with it.
Yeah, well, I started off acting, doing performing and writing sketch comedy in Chicago, where I'm from, acting in theater, and when my family and I moved to California, bizarre set of circumstances, my sketch writing partner didn't want to move with my entire family. So I was here by myself wondering how to express myself and realized that it wasn't so much the acting that was driving me. It was creating social political satire. It was saying something about my community. And to do that with the writing was important to me. So I got an MFA in playwriting. Like it was just that easy. And kind of hit the ground running as the poster person for It's Never Too Late, because I started grad school when my daughter was starting undergrad. So the playwriting career is fairly new to me, having had a bazillion other careers before that. But it's just been super important to me to get all the stories all this time that have been percolating in my head onto paper and out into the world. And I focus on telling stories about Black female protagonists. I use a lot of what I learned at Second City and doing those sort of tropes that we use in improv and sketch in my playwriting, because I wasn't really seeing that being done. And I was like, I'm gonna try that. And that's part of what helped me find my voice as a playwright.
I love that. You did make getting an MFA sound really, really easy. I was about to go apply myself to go get one because you made it sound like I can get in and out in 30 minutes. But I imagine that it's a lot more difficult than that. Jonathan, similar question to you. Talk to us a little bit about your aesthetic and what inspires you to face the blank page each time you create a new work.
For me, and this is a weird roundabout way of describing my aesthetic, but a lot of it I credit to the playwright Regina Taylor, who is also like Dallas hometown artist who I adore. And I think I was in high school, and I ran across a play she wrote called Watermelon Rhymes. And I believe it, and years ago when I was in high school, so I'm trying to recall what it was about, but I believe at its core, it took place during a family reunion. And the thing that I remember about it is that there's this scene where like there are two family members talking, and one of the family members is like in the theater, like an actor or a director or what have you, and the other family member kind of comes up to them and starts talking to them about the theater, as all theater people kind of have had those experiences of having family members come to you to like ask you all these questions or just whatever about the work that we do. And in the scene, the family member who was asking the questions or who was talking about not really understanding theater, they told this story about how they went downtown because they thought they were going to see a Black comedy. That's what it said in the paper, a Black comedy. And then when they got downtown, without going into too much detail about what happened in the play, because I don't actually know if I could say that on the podcast, but something happens in the play that was actually from a Christopher Durang play. And I immediately recalled, like, just like, as the character was describing in the play, I was like, oh my God, I know what that play is. But at the same time, what was hilarious to me about it was that character's impression of the evening, I thought I was going to see a Black comedy, and I don't know what the hell that I just saw, was like my own family. And for the first time, as a young theater artist, I felt like I was able to see a reflection of my deeply Southern Black family and kinfolk and soil in a way that I hadn't fully seen yet. And so when I write, in terms of my aesthetic, I always say that I write for my family, which sounds kind of weird and strange, but I do, because I suppose that probably not a lot of other people are writing for my family necessarily. So
you might be the playwright that knows your family the best. The thing that you said that I love the most is that you write from the soil. And that makes me think about Rachel Lynette. Rachel, I know that you write plays that feature characters that aren't often seen in contemporary drama. I'd love to know a little bit about what inspired you to start writing, and what what place in the American theater zeitgeist do your plays and your writing seem to fill?
Yeah, I am. The last thing I wanted to be was a playwright for a really long time. I wanted to be a corporate defense attorney because I liked their apartments and rom-coms. I was like, I want an apartment like that. So then I got to college.
You've been watching Living Single or something like that?
I was watching Living Single, Sex and the City. I was like, why she works in a newspaper? Why is her apartment like that? Anyway, so then I got to college and failed a bunch of things. And then I started taking theater, and I was like, okay, I'm going to be an admin person. I'm going to work in stage management. And as I was stage managing, I remember like trying to find plays of people that looked like me and had lives like mine. I was like, where are the Black people? Like, where are the queer Black people? Where are the queer Black women? And my professors at the time were like, those plays don't really exist. And I was like, what? And that kind of just like kicked me off to, I don't want anyone to ever say those plays don't exist. So if I have to write 100 plays, I will, of just only queer Black women. And that's pretty much most of my plays. I like to say that I write about messy, complicated queer women of color. So
what I love about you all, right? Like, you all, just in your 3 explanations of your aesthetic, prove that Blackness is not monolithic. And one of the best things about creating the next narrative monologue competition that True Colors did last year was that we knew that there was an opportunity to present for young people a diversity of Black playwrights and Black stories. What Rachel just mentioned and what Jonathan talks about, and the same with Enda, was that for so many young artists or artists over the decades, they had to create and invent a world in which they can see themselves or see their family represented. And the hope that we have with the next narrative monologue competition is that the next generation gets to read in this play, and Jonathan's play, and Rachel's play, and Regina Taylor is another one of the playwrights, so that they can see themselves and then be inspired by that work to continue to create. I want to talk a little bit, and I'm going to go to you, Jonathan, first. You get this random email from me. I don't know that we had much of a relationship before I emailed you. And I said, hey, I heard about your work. I think you'd be really dope for this program. Take me back to that moment and say, okay, I'm going to create a what for who? What is this next narrative monologue competition? What inspired you to say yes to being part of this collective of playwrights?
First of all, I believe it was just simply getting the email from you. I was just really excited. I've of course followed and have always been such a huge admirer of True Colors and your work as well. So just the idea of potentially having an opportunity to collaborate in some fashion was like a no-brainer for me. And then also there was a little part. There was a part of me for so many years with the August Wilson monologue competition that in the back of my mind always hoped or thought that something like this could actually be possible, that the opportunity for young theater artists, for young actors to have the chance to engage with the work of living Black playwrights. And so it was something that I kind of always hoped for, and finally it was kind of landing in my lap. So it felt like, why would I not say yes?
You know, you already, I was going to go and speak to people about the program objectives. And if you'd like to learn more about the next narrative monologue competition, I implore you to go and follow us on truecolorstheater.org. Go to visit our website and click on the next narrative monologue competition on the drop down. We abbreviated on the drop down as NNMC. Go and learn more about it. But I do want to talk a little bit about the program objectives. And Jonathan, you mentioned the first one is introduce students to today's leading contemporary Black writers. I want to ask this question to Enda Craig Galvan. Enda, talk to me a little bit about your community. How often are you in community with other Black writers, and what does it mean for you to be listed alongside so many, Idris Goodwin, amongst so many others that we've already mentioned today inside of this compendium?
Yeah, often it's, you're not usually in the same place at the same time. There's like one, but a lot of times it's in the developmental processes where, like, I met Idris in Oregon when I was at OSF working on something, or I met a brilliant director when I was doing a workshop in Philadelphia, or like you meet people along the way, and whenever there's an opportunity to like do something all together, that's really exciting to me, because you see each other so infrequently and you see each other's names all the time, or you read each other's work, but to actually have a project that you feel like you're doing something with these people whose work you've admired for so long, and it's a great opportunity for us, for me as a playwright, to feel like I'm doing something with my people.
Rachel, we talked a little bit earlier today. This is yet another plug for the True Colors podcast. Did not know that I was doing that today. But Rachel, we talked a little bit earlier on the True Colors podcast just about some of the themes, the monologue themes for the competition. And thanks to our friends at Theatrical Rights Worldwide, soon and very soon, actually right now, you can purchase the compendium as an ebook, and soon and very soon it will be published over the next year. There are 10 themes that each of the monologues fall within one or more of 10 themes, one of them being social, emotional, physical health. I want to talk a little bit, Rachel, with you about this idea. I know that particular theme was one that you were really interested in, the idea of mental health, social health, emotional health. Can you talk a little bit about why you were inspired to write at least one of your monologues that fit inside of that theme?
Yeah, it's funny. I think all three of them do. But yeah, I'm not to repeat too much what I said on the podcast, but I think mental health, at least in my family, wasn't talked about a lot in Black families. I really was really drawn to that, of like a chance to be able to give someone who might have been going through what I was going through in high school and didn't have the words for it or the toolkit or whatever to deal with an anxiety attack. And so one of my monologues is about an anxiety attack. And then the other two have to do with queerness, which it's really beneficial to your mental health, turns out, when you can come out. You don't have to hide who you are. And so I just, like I'm always trying to figure out what's missing, what's the gap. And I can't imagine how amazing it would have been to find a monologue that tells me, one, what an anxiety attack is and what it looks like and how to kind of work through it. And so it was really important to me to write that.
You know, as we're going to prepare to hear one of those monologues by another one of our amazing Black playwrights, Candace Jones, we're going to hear a monologue of hers performed here in a second. I want to talk to you all each. This is a popcorn question. But what does it feel like, you know, you all yet to have heard any of our students in our 10 regions perform their monologues, perform your work on stage, but just you all are playwrights. Envision a world in which you are in the audience and you're seeing young people ages 13 to 19 say your words, recite the words that you all created. Can you all speak to what you imagine that might feel like, or what you hope young people are taking away from any of the monologues or just from this experience? Rachel, you scratched your nose first, so I'm going to go to you.
Oh, no. I think I'd be really just kind of overwhelmed with how special the moment would be. As I'm getting older, I cry a lot more, so I'd probably cry a bit, of just kind of like when you just said Candace Jones, I was like, yes, I love Candace. I can't wait. Like, you just get to geek out, and it really feels, there's something really powerful about knowing it's all Black playwrights, and it feels like a community that I don't always 100% get to see. And so to be part of this larger community, even like, I don't know, across text, is really powerful and incredible. And to see that the high school students are being welcomed in through our words just feels, I don't know, it gives me a little bit of goosebumps.
I'll say it feels like a continuum, you know, like a thing moving or from one generation to the next. This idea of torch passing, or this idea of artists from maybe a generation, one generation slightly removed, not too far apart, but being able to, you know, be in conversation with each other in a way. And also I think it's really, and I'll probably repeat this a couple of times maybe during the evening, but just the idea that, you know, I remember when I was in high school, and I was fortunate to do a production at a local theater of Joe Turner's Come and Gone. And so there's folks who could introduce me to a variety of different plays by African-American playwrights that I would otherwise not have known. But I also know a lot of my classmates and colleagues never really had that opportunity until much later in their careers. So just knowing that, like, we're a part of a passing on of work and artistry, and that the next generation doesn't have to, someone used to say, plow the same fields in a way. Like, it's an old mentor who used to say that, and now I can't get rid of it. But like, the whole generation doesn't have to do, the next generation doesn't have to do that. There's some progress from one to the next.
And to bring us home.
I mean, I've been cheating. I guess I've been looking on some Instagrams of theaters where they post their regional results. It is so dope seeing these high schoolers, like, and just seeing which monologues they picked and how I didn't get to see, you know, you're not seeing the actual performances, but just knowing that they have something that was created for them, that they don't have to, like, I remember when I was doing a monologue, I found something from the novel Gorky Park, which could not be further from my experience in life, but I like the words. But to know that as a young performer, or a newer performer, you've got someone writing something for you. You have a whole now book of monologues that are for you. Like, that's so dope. And to be part of that just makes me happy.
And I want to just say that it's growing. Not only how we have monologues from the three of you and some of the other ones that we've mentioned. If you go to, again, to truecolorstheater.org and you click on the next narrative monologue competition, scroll all the way down and you'll see Lady Dane Figueroa Edidi and Francesca Del Silvera and Deneen Reynolds Nod, amongst others, Nick Milwaukee and Stacy Rose. Like, the list continues to grow. We had more than 40 monologues submitted for this year's competition, and we already have started to solicit playwrights who said yes. And you know how playwrights are, we give a deadline. You all know you give a deadline and you can continue to come back. So we look forward to growing it. Before we leave, I want to give a big shout out to those regional partners. We've been mentioning them, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention all of our friends all across the nation who are currently competing or have just completed the regional competitions. I mentioned earlier, students who win, the first and second place winners from each region, get an all expense paid trip to New York. We fly them out to New York. We put them up in a hotel. This year, our host venue will be the Apollo Theater. What better way to celebrate the first year of the next narrative monologue competition where we're celebrating contemporary Black writers than to put it right there at the Apollo? So big shout out to our friends at the Apollo. We're really, really excited to be there. And the national competition will be on Monday, May 2nd. The students will be representing the following regions. Of course, here in Atlanta, True Colors Theater, but in Boston, we are thankful to be partnered with the Huntington Theater Company. In Dallas, big shout out to SMU, Southern Methodist University, and our friends out there. Milwaukee Rep is holding down the Midwest, as well as LEAP is representing New York. The Bill Nunn Theater Project is our representative out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Seattle Rep on the West Coast. Seattle. They're representing Seattle. Finally, we have Detroit, Michigan, and East Lansing, Michigan is represented by our friends at Michigan State University. And finally, Yale Rep and Long Wharf Theater out of New Haven. Those are our 9 regions, and we're really excited to bring those students, the first and second place winners, bring those students to New York for a chance to take home the title. And it's not just a pat on the back, y'all. Students who win are getting big time scholarship money. We're thankful to be able to put thousands of dollars in the hands of students who are competing for this opportunity. So please, if you haven't yet, if you're in one of those regions, check their websites of those regional theaters that I just mentioned. See if you can go and check out their regional competitions. And if you're in the Atlanta area, we welcome you to come join us on April 3rd, Sunday, April 3rd, to see our Atlanta regional competition. We'll be holding it at the Woodruff Arts Center. Without further ado, I mentioned earlier that we were going to be blessed to hear a monologue from one of the former winners of our previous monologue competition, Miss Taylor Jackson, who reigns and hails from Alabama. She was a winner here in the Atlanta region and went on and was the runner-up for the national title back in 2020. I would like to introduce Miss Taylor Jackson performing "It's Aaliyah for Me" by Candace Jones.
What celebrity death upset you the most? Everybody had opinions. Some folks said Michael Jackson. Some folks said Juice WRLD. But I said Aaliyah. Because to me, she was the greatest female R&B singer ever. And that's when everybody, even you, Miss Smith, the teacher, overreacted and started talking about Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston, Whitney Houston. Some folks said Beyonce. She ain't dead, so she don't count. Then they come back with Whitney. Whitney. Listen, I love Whitney, Nippy Houston, but she don't represent me. And y'all can roll your eyes if you want to, but it's Aaliyah for me. Whitney had a beautiful voice. Okay, the way she sang the Star Spangled Banner almost made me forget racism. That's cool too. But when Whitney died, I wasn't mad. Her body and voice were all messed up. And whatever folks saw growing up in the 80s and 90s, I didn't see. I saw pain, shame, busted wigs, and addiction. I guess Bobby Brown was fine back in the day, but I look at him now and I'm like, why, Nippy, why? So it's still Aaliyah for me. The Black Mermaid Princess. I remember her Rock the Boat video. It looked like she was an angel already. She was the first person who ever made me ask my mama why people had to die. Why can't they just live forever? I was hit so hard by her death even as a little girl. And Aaliyah was one of the first Black girls on TV that did goth or something close to it. Are You That Somebody video? She had that hawk on her hand, face beat to the vampire gods. I felt like I saw a black girl who could control any creature on earth that she wanted. I mean, I get why folks love Whitney. She had the face and the voice. But Aaliyah was Aaliyah. She could dance, and she had that flat stomach that all the girls still want. And when I heard she wore shades all through her first album because she didn't want her beauty to get in the way of that, I thought that was so dope. Tell me who got the guts to do that today. Aaliyah was so dope and so pretty, folks kind of forgave R. Kelly because they thought he was a genius. Well, folks forgave R. Kelly because they want to forgive men for doing things like that. But he's not the subject at hand today. Back to Aaliyah. Because she was that dope tomboy every girl wants to be. Because I could sing along with her without losing my voice. Because looking at her was like looking at black perfection that will never die. So y'all can have Whitney, Juice WRLD, Michael Jackson, Prince, and whoever. It's Aaliyah for me.
Once again, one more time, let's get a virtual round of applause to Taylor Jackson. Great job, Taylor. I love that monologue, and I love it for a couple of reasons. One of them is that I really feel like it hits some of those themes, not only program objective number 2 about exposing students to acting techniques that will enhance their knowledge of the art and skill of performance. And we can clearly see that Taylor and Taloria, who went before her, they're both very talented and have they're really starting to nail down what the skill of performance is. But this idea of investigating how history and culture influence personal perspective through artful exploration. Every time I hear that monologue specifically, I remember where I was when Aaliyah died, and I always think about that monologue very fondly. The program objective that I do want to shift our conversation to talk about is number 5, and how we embolden students to use their voices to inspire social action. Rachel, I'll start with you here on this idea. True Colors, we say that we thrive at the intersection of artistic excellence and civic engagement. And it's right there at this nexus that we do events like these, our community conversations, but we are always trying to find ways that we can use art to open up conversations, to inspire people to do something, inspire people to social action. Rachel, I know a lot of your plays feature characters that aren't just going to maintain status quo. They're not going to just stay put. They're going to inspire someone to go and do something. Can you talk a little bit about how civic engagement or civic action, social action plays a role in the plays, but just you and how it shapes you as a playwright?
Yeah, I really want people to like walk away from my plays and thinking I gotta be kind of pushed into action. And so I try to write plays where it's a lot of people making the wrong choices, so they finally are forced to make the right one. And I think that's a lot of us in real life too. And I there's nothing worse than seeing a play, right? And then going and be like, well, that was fun. I'm going to go eat dinner and never talk about this play ever again. And so I also try to leave it where it's open enough where people want to talk about like, what was the issue in that play? Why did that character resist picking the right choice for so long? And then hopefully turn and go, why am I resisting making the right choice? And that's kind of what I hope my work does. I don't know that I'm always successful because sometimes I'm having too much fun with myself, but that is the goal ultimately, because I do think theater is most powerful when it has the ability for social change.
And Enda, you mentioned that you write plays that have a satirical focus or that take a really incisive look at the ways in which we as Americans and our multiplicity of experiences, move through the world. Can you talk a little bit about how this idea of inspiring social action plays a role in your work as well?
Yeah, I tend to write plays that feature African-American characters, Black woman protagonists. I'm not interested in the white gaze. I don't really care if they understand my work or not, because I write stories about us for us. And they are usually rooted in some point in history, along with some mystery. One of my professors used to always say, what's the history and what's the mystery? So that magical realism, the comedy, sort of using those tropes to get to the heart of something real that's happening in society now or that happened in society in the past. And the more specific I can be, the better. And to the point where I'm like, nobody's going to understand this play because it's so specific. But then ultimately does resonate with people because there is a universality in our stories. There is a commonality, there's a shared experience and a shared history or a shared present that speaks to people, I hope. And because I tend to root things in some moment in time, some real moment in time, whether it's a year ago, whether it's the start of the pandemic, whether it's the 1970s, there is always some sort of social and political aspect to it that we can look at as audience members, as participants in theater and say, I remember when that happens, or I know how that feels, and I want to learn more about it, and I want to know what I can do to not be stuck in that again.
Jonathan, a similar question to you. Idea of social action. You talked earlier in the first part of our conversation about the ways in which your family and the soil in which you're from inspires your plays. Can you talk a little bit about what you hope people leave the theater feeling, doing after they see a Jonathan Norton piece?
Yes, for me, my work tends to examine communities in crisis and how that crisis shapes and molds and strengthens and transforms and sometimes perhaps weakens, but like examining how communities navigate pivotal moments in the life of their community, in the life of their neighborhood or their city or their church, and hopefully in that audiences can actually see a reflection of challenges. And I hate to say struggle because you say struggle and then you start falling into that whole like Black trauma porn thing happening, which you don't want to do. But that like through seeing a reflection of another group of people dealing with something, it hopefully makes it a little somewhat easier for audiences to find their way through perhaps similar situations. It's something about it that's kind of like cathartic and allows you to deal with the thing or gain tools or skills to move on in your own life or the life of the community to navigate similar challenges. So.
I love that. And for the last 38, almost 40 minutes, we've been talking, really nicely. And we've been talking generally about the American theater and our places in that. But now, y'all, it's time to get real, right? Like, how often do we get an opportunity to be in conversation with other Black writers on a space, Inna talked about, this is not intended to be within the white gaze, right? This is an opportunity to have an intracultural conversation. And I want to talk, especially as we talk about creating spaces for the next generation of artists to come after us, and the fact that with this monologue competition, young people get a chance to hear directly from contemporary Black writers who are currently putting their artistry and their creativity out there in an American theater that still has a lot left to grow and change. I want to talk a little bit about just the ways in which you all have seen, here we are still, because we are on the Zoom, pandemic life has changed the way in which we create theater. I want to talk a little bit about what the pandemic has inspired in your writing. Has it shifted your aesthetic? Has it changed your relationship to the work that you do? Whoever scratches their nose first is the one I'm going to call on, or whomever is inspired. I feel like now noses are itching that they aren't going to get scratched. But who wants to talk a little bit about the ways in which the pandemic and the racial reckoning has changed their relationship, or how has it changed your relationship to the American theater and the way you approach your work?
I'm happy to. Oh, I talked too quickly. I love that Inda said that about the white gaze. I feel like for a really long time pre-pandemic, I had this idea that I know that most of my audiences are going to be white people, but I don't want to also harm Black people. So how do I create theater that I know white people are going to see? They're going to be the majority of the audience, but also not show Black people in a way that they're going to use that as violence against us. And I learned you can't. With white artistic directors, they're going to chop up your play, and you can try to defend it all you want. And that the pandemic really showed me that. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that I did was I started my own theater company, and I was like, I'm going to do what I want when I want. And somebody tried to stop me. And it was great. And it was really powerful to be able to kind of take that power back to kind of say, I'm not writing for the white gaze anymore. And I don't think that I am anymore. I'm really just trying to say, I got people to talk to. The people that I'm talking to know I'm talking to them. And if anybody else is there, cool, welcome, I guess. Like, you can stay or you can leave. I don't care. And that's been really empowering. And I'm really thankful for that part of the pandemic. So.
I love the authenticity in which you write, Rachel, and all of you all write, and definitely how that shifted there. Inda, you were going to speak on this as well.
Yeah, like and I'm sure y'all have probably experienced this as well at the beginning of the pandemic. Theaters and organizations saying, write a 5-minute play about your pandemic experience, and I was like, okay, we got a little comedy about me, this character, having breakfast, cookies, and gin every day for a week because I couldn't function. But then it was like a competition, and it was write more, and we want to pick the most traumatic ones as the winner, or it just became really gross. And it really led me to understand better that some of these theater organizations want your pain, and they want your sadness, and they want to exploit it. And it got me to the place where I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to give you that. You don't get that from me. And actually, who is your audience even? And I withdrew from quite a few things, blocked a few folks, and just realized that I need to be more specific and intentional about the kind of work I'm doing, who I want it to be for, and who I want to partner with. And thank God.
Yes, thank her. Jonathan, how do you respond to this idea on just the ways in which your creative process or the work that you are interested in writing, how has the last, the months keep on changing. Almost, this is year 3. We're in year 3 of this thing. Right. How has your work, your approach to work changed?
I feel like it's interesting because I had this shift that happened for me in January of 2020, right before the pandemic, and then it kind of like followed into the pandemic and kind of grew from that. But I just had this moment of feeling like there was a certain toxicity connected to, as a Black playwright, and you're trying to make it, or in the American theater, and there was a certain toxicity sometimes related to that, to the energy or the ways in which we don't take care of ourselves, or self-care, because you're just so focused on trying to get this thing, or trying to get this person to do your play, or trying to get into this program, or what have you. So I kind of instituted this thing where I just stopped writing at home, and I stopped doing like anything connected to theater or to art in my actual home, because there's this sense of like this toxicity that was like coming into my sacred space, which is my home. And so I would just really make an effort to work and write outside of the home to keep things separate. But then of course, when the pandemic happened, and then all of a sudden there was no more, or no opportunity for that separation. And so now we have like Zoom meetings, and like the outside world even coming into my living room and being able to see where I live. And so it was like another moment of having to figure out how to create a boundary, like what were healthy boundaries to create for all artists, but particularly for Black artists, And I feel like I'm still in this space of trying to figure out what those boundaries are. Like, and that feels like it shifts every single day. But there was like this one moment where like the only thing that had a right to be in my home was like HGTV and Beyonce. And that was it. And that was like literally the only thing. And it was like, this is welcome into my home. American theater is not welcome into my home. And I'm trying to get back to that more and honor that, because from a self-care perspective, it's really important.
So one of the things that I heard throughout the thread, a thread that kind of exists through the three of you all, talked a little bit about self-care as we talk about the next narrative monologue composition and what we hope to be preparing our high school students for. We're not necessarily preparing them for careers as playwrights or as actors, but artfully engaged citizens of the world. And we recognize that the art has an opportunity to impact and change culture. As we talk about art making, you talked a lot about self-care. What are things that you all do as artists, but can you inspire inside of your work that really leans into self-care? Gen Z, they're doing a good job of it, but how can we continue to inspire more people to lean into that self-care? Share some, maybe if you're comfortable, will you share some self-care techniques and things like that, so that we can, what we need from you all. We don't want just these monologues in the plays that you all have already written. We hope that you continue to write plays for the next 30 plus years. So talk to us a little bit about what you're doing to take care of yourself so that we have it in the Craig Galvan satirical piece here in the year 2060.
Enda started going to therapy because Enda needed to talk to somebody. Yeah. And I'm very grateful for there's online therapy available, so I don't have to go anywhere, and it's super convenient, and I got all the tools I needed, because I realized that I was having not really writer's block, but just not feeling as bold, or as not feeling as worthy as I wish that I did, and was getting quiet in rooms and not sitting down and working as quickly as I typically do. I'm usually like the fastest person, and was like, "Ooh, why have I stared at this page for this computer screen for an entire day playing Boggle?" So it's been a long winter in California. So I mean, winter, but so typically I go swimming, and I meditate, and I exercise. But just being cold and dreary, and if I were still back in the Midwest, it'd be even worse, I know. But having somebody to talk to in lieu of sunshine has been really, really beneficial. And converting a room in my house into like a workout room, so I can walk on my treadmill and I don't have to be around some of my crazy neighbors. 'Cause I'm in an area where a lot of people voted for Trump. And I don't want to see them people in the morning. So I go in my workout room, and I get on my treadmill, and I listen to my podcasts. And once a week I talk to my therapist.
Big shout out to therapists. Big shout out to my therapist. I hope you're watching. I don't know if you are or not. I don't know if that violates some of the things that we do, but thank you. I just checked in with my therapist yesterday. Rachel, Jonathan, either one of you all, talk a little bit about self-care routines. What can we give the next generation on how to, one person told me, I want to give a big shout out to Paul Robinson. He talked about nutritious people and surrounding yourself around nutritious people, because if and when we burnout is real, and especially here in the pandemic, we're finding that burnout is real. But the thing that recharges us, supercharges us, is around being around nutritious people. So that's a thing that I want to put out there: finding nutritious people, finding a community that energizes you and doesn't deplete from your energy source. What can we give to the next generation so that they, when they experience these things, or maybe they find a self-care routine that allows them not to burn out at the same rate that some of us may? Rachel, Jonathan, whomever wants to jump in.
Yeah. Therapy, co-signed, you know, I love therapy. It's great. Something that helped me a lot is I really believe in having a connection to the earth. That can mean whatever you need it to be, but just go outside into nature. If you have to go to a park, go sit. Like, I used to be called flower child in grad school because of what I'm about to say, and everybody's going to turn their nose, but it's fine. Take your shoes off and put your feet in the dirt for a second. Like, just kind of ground yourself. Go swim in a lake. Go to the beach if you could. I miss that about LA. I could just go to the beach, although it's probably super crowded. But like, just go outside and remember that you're not stuck in these boxes. Like, especially in the pandemic, I really had to stress the importance of being around outside, and it helped me so much to be like, I'm not stuck in this tiny space, even though that's how I felt. Because people felt scary for a bit, you know, if they got too close to you, you were like, and so just being outside for a second, and kind of like going outside at night is kind of one of my favorite things to do on a full moon. But just seeing that like the world is much bigger than whatever it is that you're dealing with, and that it'll fade, and just remembering that and taking your breath, and yeah, just being in nature.
I've started to discover the importance of proper diet and nutrition, and just being really more mindful about what I eat. I recently stopped eating dairy, which has been strange for me because, you know, I'm in Texas, and so like I'm in Texas. I mean, hello. And so like Tex-Mex and just Southern food and like everything, and so removing dairy from my diet, I thought would be a really difficult thing to do. But surprisingly, it's been much easier than I thought. And trying to eat more gluten-free options, and even beginning to stick my big toe more into like vegan dishes and vegan options of things that I love. And so that's been really helpful for me, particularly also because this is probably TMI for the whatever, but for anyone who's ever dealt with stomach issues or what have you, like removing those items from your diet can go a long way.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and our guts, you know, we trust our gut, right? Like that's the thing, and we got to treat our guts well. So just to recap, you know, for those who are out there listening and we're trying to inspire the next generation of artists or actively artistically engaged citizens, find ways to take care of yourself, whether it's doing things that make sure that your gut, the thing that you listen to, stays healthy. Go take a walk, put your feet in the sand, get connected to the land. Find out your self-care routines, find a therapist. These are things that today's leading contemporary Black writers are doing and instilling, and that's what's helping them continue to create work. We have a couple of minutes here before I turn it over to a question and answer, and the questions are coming in here. But the last thing that I wanted to do, and just again, just in referencing this next narrative monologue competition, I want to give a big shout out to the national coordinator of the next narrative monologue competition, Miss Larson Kennedy. Larson is a superstar. We're really, really thankful for her. She was raised and trained here at True Colors. So we're really, really excited for the ways in which she has communicated with all of our writers and putting together some of the things for our national competition that is going to be again in New York. Students will arrive on the last day of April and will stay until Monday, May 2nd. I brought that up, and I want to just kind of talk again about just we have yet to hear specifically from you all. If you remember, I'm going to ask you to go pull back in your memories when you wrote those and submitted those monologues a little bit, and just tell people maybe just a little bit about a monologue or your monologues that you created for this competition, and just give us a sense of some of the monologues. I know we've heard two already, but we want to hear from you all, since we've been listening to you all talk for 55 minutes about some of the things that you all wrote for the monologue competition. And again, I'll let that go to whomever is most has already recalled their monologue to the top of the head and wants to share a little bit about what they wrote and submitted for the competition.
Well, I'll go because I have it written down on a piece of paper here. One of the monologues I wrote was called Late Due to Lemonade, that was inspired by something that happened to a friend of mine who is a wheelchair user he's a person with disability, and he got stuck in a subway because none of the elevators work. And I don't see a lot of plays featuring people centered around characters with disabilities. And I wanted to make sure that there was something that I could contribute something to this competition if someone chose to perform that. And the other one is about Upcharge, is about gentrification, about a food server I was a food server for a very long time, who was sort of at their last, on their last straw, who just decides, I'm going to just break it down and tell it like it is about this food that you're about to order in this restaurant that you are sitting in this neighborhood that used to be someone else's neighborhood. So those are mine.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And again, you can find all of these monologues in TRW's compendium, the Next Narrative Monologue Competition, and it's available for purchase right now in the ebook and soon, very soon, in a published form. Rachel, Jonathan, you want to tell us a little bit about the work that you all submitted for the Next Narrative Monologue Competition?
Sure. One of my monologues was really an opportunity for me to dig into something I was currently working on, and basically it's a story about queerness in the African American church and usher boards, and so that's what it is. I love queerness, and I actually love the Black church, and I love usher boards. So all of these things that I love. And there's another about the child of a woman who lived through, who was school aged during the Atlanta child murders, and she is trying to. There's so much that her mother has never been able to speak of about that period, and she knows that there's something there that she would hope to be able to help her mother unlock or deal with or confront or let go of, but she's trying to find a way in, and it's always been a struggle. And then just another piece about, I think we often want to believe that you should do the right thing for doing the right thing's sake, right? And so I think the third monologue really deals with the fact that there are reasons why people sometimes are not able to do the right thing. And so the third monologue explores that.
Rachel brings home.
Yeah. I also wrote 3. I very selfishly approached it as, what do I wish I had in high school? So I figured out I was queer in high school. So coming out to a parent is one of mine. That one's out. Happier, that just being brave enough to ask someone to love you back and hope that they say yes. That's kind of that monologue. And just how scary it is, especially, I mean, it's scary now. Like I couldn't just be like, hey, love me back. But especially when you're younger and you're feeling all those feelings. And 1 second, which is just kind of like, I'm having a panic attack and I don't have the words for that right now. And I'm having an anxiety attack and everything is horrible. And oh my God, I have to grow up and this is just going to keep happening to me. No. And that's that monologue, which is probably my favorite of the 3. But those are the 3 that I wrote.
Well, I cannot wait. I mentioned earlier that the Atlanta Regional Competition is happening this weekend. I cannot wait to see what the students bring and the tenacity and the excellence and dedication and execution that they bring to each of your monologues. And I'm really excited to see what happens on May 2nd at the Apollo Theater, and which student is going to take it home, which region is going to be represented, but of course, which monologues get a chance to shine. So thank you all very much for sharing your monologues. And now I want to open it up to questions in the audience, and I encourage all of you all who are listening live on YouTube or all throughout our social channels to please submit your monologues. Submit your monologue. If you want to submit your monologue, make sure you put a little copyright on it at the same time too. We all talked about our limited acting experiences. Mine is probably the most limited, but we will try to share what we get submitted here. The first question is coming from Dakira. when someone is putting on a show of yours, do you always go out to see it? And if not, what draws you to seeing a specific show? So, playwrights, we know there's a thing called Playwrights Row in the back of the theater. I often sit there too as a director. What inspires you all to sit in the back row, or maybe even you're more brave than I, sit in maybe the middle row, the front row of your play? What inspires you to go and check out a show? Do you go see your shows, and what draws you to it?
I mean, I'm in the, if it's a brand new play, you're going to be in the whole process and at the premiere of it. I also, I have a job that prevents me from being able to travel as much as I could. But I try to support and see stuff. If there's a second production of something, I definitely want to see that, because I feel like from the first production I made changes, because you discover stuff after you've seen it up on its feet and with an audience. And so that if there's a second production of a play, then yeah, I try to make it to that. And yes, I am hiding in the back row somewhere.
Jonathan, Rachel, do you all go see your plays when they're produced? And if so, why? If not, why?
I mean, certainly the first production, and if it's here in Dallas, I will often attend as much of the run as I can. I won't actually sit in the theater and watch the play, but I like to just either be there at the beginning of the show or after the show at some point, just to greet people and greet friends and thank people for coming, like in the lobby or whatever. And then outside of Dallas, like if there is an opportunity if it works, I suppose, with my schedule and there's an opportunity to travel to see something, or if I have friends of mine who are doing something of mine outside of Dallas and I have an opportunity to travel, then I would certainly do that. And then in terms of just Playwrights Row, I sit in Playwrights Row even when it's not one of my plays. It's just a habit that I have now, and I always try to sit on an aisle and toward the back, because I just like to be where I can make a quick getaway if necessary.
Rachel, where do you sit in the house when you go and see your work, or do you go and see your work?
I used to really want to go every single time, and I just, because of like in just jobs and time, and you can't always go. I wish I could go to every single production. Sometimes there's overlapping, so I can't be in two places at once yet. I'll figure it out soon. But for me, what I usually make the choice on is, when is it over 2020? Unfortunately, I had to have the horrible conversation with myself: is it safe to go? Which was really hard, and 2021. So I did miss the world premiere of one of my plays because I just didn't feel it was safe. And that's really heartbreaking, but I do try to go for both the world premiere, and then if there is a second production, I want to go. I love being able to go and you don't know anything at all and you're just kind of surprised, hopefully for the better. That's not always what happens. But just to kind of go see a production of it. I hate that headshots are in programs now, because I love to eavesdrop in the bathroom to see what people say about the playwright. And now that my picture's on there, they all know and they whisper around me. And for where I sit, I like to sit near a door for that easy getaway. I used to work as a house manager, so I know where the doors are. And so I sit on the aisle near a door, which is usually row H sometimes. Because for the same reason, I want to be able to pop out if I need to. So
good stuff, y'all. I like that. I really love that. So if you see one of our playwrights on Playwrights Row, leave them alone. They are just trying to enjoy the show, whether it's their show or not. Find them, find another way to reach out to them and tell them how much you enjoyed their piece. Another question that's coming in is, how do you incorporate technology when creating young characters in a way that is authentic, but doesn't allow the technology to over-dominate the character? Clearly, as we write more contemporary pieces, our relationship to technology changes. That was also another theme of the next narrative monologue competition. There are a couple of monologues about technology and our relationship to it. Can you all speak to, those of you all who have written pieces that take place in contemporary times? How are you writing technology into your pieces?
I've only done it once. It's a thing I try to avoid because tech changes so rapidly. I do have a play for like college age performers that's about influencers. It's actually an adaptation of a Spanish Golden Age commedia, which is getting produced by DePaul University in the summer. So I'm interested to see what they do with it. But for like when they're making TikToks or when they're making posts, when they're doing things like that, they just sort of appear, and we don't deal with the phone in the script. They just appear, and you get that this is their post, and they just say the thing, and then they, lights out on them. But I just try to focus on the characters and use those elements sparingly, because tech's going to be different. The whatever social media platforms might not exist by the time that play gets produced, so it's going to feel dated. But also, I just rather focus on the character and the story.
Jonathan and Rachel, have you all had relationships to technology in your plays?
Yeah, I have a bad habit of keeping my characters my age, so that if the technology makes sense, that's one of my little tricks. I'm like, I know what I use, so they're my age now. And so I use a lot of texting in my work. I think it's really fun when you just see someone like pick up their phone and then you don't know why, and then like 30 minutes later someone shows up and it's like, oh hey, and it's like, why are they here? And it's like, oh, I texted them. And like I think there's a lot of really fun that you can do there. I did try to write a TikTok video, and then I realized I have my rule for a reason. So I didn't have to do that. And so I'm still learning a better way other than having to only have characters in their 30s. But because obviously I wrote for teenagers, and I pretended like cell phones didn't exist, which is probably not a good idea. So I'm still figuring out how to include technology in my work.
I use it sparingly, I think. And it's typically out of necessity when a moment calls for it, like if someone were to pick up their phone and start texting and what have you. But for the most part, it's technology does not appear like it's a central theme or motif or device in my work. Although now I'm so thankful for that question, because now I'm sitting here like, so never know.
Oh, it sounds like we got a new piece being birthed here. That's exciting. That's exciting. There's another question that's coming in. This one is not attributed to anyone specifically, as the audience member did not leave their name. But for our aspiring writers who are watching, what is one thing you wish you knew when you started writing? Again, for those of you all who are aspiring writers out there in the audience, let's have our contemporary griots tell us what was the thing that you wish you knew when you started writing. Jonathan, you went last time, so now you got to go first.
I got to go first. Okay. So this is the thing I wish that I knew, and it's actually the thing that I have to constantly remind myself of, is that no one is exactly where they want to be, regardless of who that person is. I mean, you can look at someone who you think is like, just go as far as like a Tony Award winner and what have you, and this whole amazing career and resume, and you imagine that they have everything that they want, but in truth, no one is exactly where they want to be and or have exactly the thing that they really want to have. And so to not constantly compare myself to other people, because that will never serve you. And so it's certainly the thing I wish I'd known when I was starting out, but it's also the thing I have to continually remind myself of.
Oh, that's beautiful. Rachel, Enda, do you have a response here? What do you wish you knew at the beginning of your career?
Yeah, something that like makes sense to me, or hope it makes sense, is do the weird thing. I was very good at mimicry. I was very good at like reading a playwright and then writing in that exact voice, and just thinking like, oh, this person won an award, so I'm going to write like them and then I can win an award. Or I'm going to do this because this other person did it and they were successful. And so I had someone tell me once, just do the weird thing you want to do. Don't try to copy somebody else. And you will then become the person. like just staying true to yourself completely and not feeling like you have to mimic someone else or copy someone else's style, and like give yourself permission to figure out exactly what your voice is and let that take time rather than trying to just follow the winners, because panels change, people's decisions change, judges change, sometimes even in the same day. Like I've been on these panels and you'll talk to somebody one day and they'll be like, I really like this play. And the next time you see them, they're like, never mind. So just write something that you can stand behind and fail on your own terms rather than trying to mimic somebody else.
Mine is very similar to that. When you're finding your voice, your specific voice as a writer, try anything, try everything. Like there's nothing impossible. Or if you think something is impossible, go ahead and write it anyway. And trust that when it gets produced, designers will figure out a way to make it happen. But just try anything. Try it all.
You all, our YouTube audience is watching live, and any of you all who are watching this on this replay, you all are getting recipes and learning about your healthcare. You are getting advocates for mental health. You're getting to know a little bit more about the things that make all of our playwrights tick. And you're also getting really great advice for those of you all who are aspiring writers. So, you may have come for one thing, but I hope you're getting a really, really full taste. Thank you all very much. The questions continue to keep on coming in, so I'm going to continue to ask them. This is another question coming in from Dakira, who asked the question earlier, but what is the last piece of art that moves you to create a change or inspire you deeply in life? I'll read it again. What is the last piece of art that moved you to create a change or inspire you deeply in life?
I'll go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think, okay, for me, it would be Flex by Kendrick Jones. It's honestly one of my most favorite plays, and the thing about it that I love so much is that just a little thing for those who may not know. It's about a Black high school girls basketball team in Arkansas in like the 1990s. Like, you cannot get more specific than that. And the thing that I just love so much about it is that I've never seen young Black women portrayed on stage in that way. I just never. And it was the women. It was young women who I knew and grew up with, like the world that I come from, and I never really encountered that on stage before. And so this is really moving and powerful for me. And so it's a play I still love and I still think about it. So yeah.
Big love to Candace. We're getting a lot of love to Candace. Someone was about to go into. I'm sorry.
I was going to say mine's not theater, but it's a theater artist, Terrell Alvin McCraney's David Makes Man. Like rocked my world that first season, and I also write television and developing my own stuff, and it was such a beautiful reminder to me that you can tell a really specific story about marginalized characters that other people might throw away, and you can do it with art and creativity and magic, and tell a beautiful story. You can do anything.
Yes. Rachel, what's the last thing that inspired you? And just like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna go and face the blank page.
The most recent one is also a play. It's a play called Tell Me I'm Gorgeous at the End of the World by Aaron Coleman. And in the first, this is not a spoiler, it's on the first page, a deer walks across the stage. And I was like, hold up, what now? What now? What happens? And he's like, it's a real deer. And I'm like, how? And it just kind of, I feel like I got stuck, especially in the pandemic, in my formula of like, okay, 4 people, they're probably sisters there. Something bad happened. They're laughing about it. And I was like, I can make a deer walk across the stage. I can like have poetry show up in the middle of a play. And it just kept reminding me of like, to always kind of watch myself and keep challenging myself. And first of all, it's a great play. I really love it. But just the way that it starts, I was just like, this play came in so hot. And I used to do this. And I need to remember how to do this. And it was a nice challenge and wake up call.
I love this question because it ties in nicely to the next question. Is just let's talk about artists that inspire us. We mentioned Candace, we mentioned Terrell, and we mentioned, and I was trying to mentally capture the name, but the thing, once you mentioned the deer, now I'm stuck on the deer. Will you please, Rachel, mention the name of the playwright in the play again?
Aaron Coleman, and it's Tell Me I'm Gorgeous at the End of the World.
Thank you so much. I mean, another great title. We've been talking about great titles today. But who are other artists that inspire you, regardless of race or playwriting medium? So it doesn't need to be a playwright, doesn't necessarily need to be a Black artist. Just talk about artistic inspirations. Enda, let's start with you.
Yeah, when I discovered, like I'm Christopher Columbus, Stephen Adly Guirgis, I was like, dialogue. You can just have people talking the way people talk. Oh, duh. Love that. I love Rajiv Joseph's work because he does such varied pieces, but it all feels like him. It doesn't feel like he's writing the same play over and over, but it all feels like it's his voice. And then Alicia Harris, her work is so beautiful, and on the page it's so gorgeous. Like the way it's formatted, it kind of guides your eye. And I know other people do that as well, but she was the first person I read who did that, where it guides you and kind of tells you how to read it and tells a beautiful story and a smart and important and socially impactful story.
A big shout out to those three. Jonathan, playwright or artist, regardless of race and medium, who's inspiring you?
I'm a huge dance. I cannot dance to save my life, but I love dance. And there's this one particular piece by Robert Battle, the artistic director of Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater, and it's called. It's like he did this thing like there's a piece with Judith Jamison, Rennie Harris, and then Robert. It's called Love Stories, and he had like the finale piece, and his finale piece is to Fingertips by Stevie Wonder, and it for some weird reason it stuck in like as like this kind of artistic DNA for me. There's something about that piece that I always return to in one form or another. But so yeah, dance and so many dancers, like past and present, like Dewana Smallwood, Linda Silly Sims with Ailey, and folks all over the country. I don't know why. I love dance. And choreographers.
Beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful. Rachel?
Yeah, I love dance too, and I need to get better about learning choreographers' names because I'll see something and be like, "Oh my god, I'm so moved by it," and then someone will say, "Who was it?" And I was like, "I don't know, but it was pretty." So just dance in general, for me, I really love Jose Rivera, Susan Laurie Parks, Lydia Diamond, Stacey Rose. I'm a stan. Like Candace Jones, the people right now on the screen with me. I've stalked you a bit. And so I also love Sabina Berman, who is a Mexican playwright. And then honestly, like, to be super honest, like 90s hip hop when it was like at its peak, you know, and like early 2000s, that's what I listen to when I write. And that's how my plays get written, is I'm just like listening to Too Short, which is probably bad, but like that also inspires me and kind of reminds me about my roots. And since I haven't been home in so long, so it's kind of a mix of lots of different music and dance and words and poetry.
Rachel, you almost inspired me to lose my job just because I started singing Too Short in my head, and thankfully I was on. So I'm thankful. I'm thankful that we were on mute. I'm thankful for the magic of technology, and I'm thankful for just a little bit of discretion, because I think that just saved this whole conversation. I think that saved my job. I imagine that I'll still have a place tomorrow when I show up for work. Y'all, let's take us out here on this conversation. There was a final question that asked, how do you deal with writer's block or just staring at the blank page? We talked about it earlier, and I commended you all just on your ability to consistently face the blank page. And you all have created so many volumes and drafts of plays. Your bios that I encourage everybody to go check out are just listing so many plays in so many places where your work has been done. What inspires you to stare at that blank page, or after you started writing, you get into a little bit of writer's block? What are some of the things that you do? I know you've shared some tools and techniques, but are there any others? Let's start with Rachel, and then we'll go Jonathan, and then Enda.
Pre-pandemic, my answer would be Jose Rivera has something that he says where if you are stuck, it's because you've lied to yourself somewhere, and go discover the lie and fix it, and then you'll be able to keep moving forward. Post-pandemic or during pandemic, my answer is maybe it's that, but maybe it's that it's just not the right time. And I've really learned in the beauty of saying, you know what, it's not time for me to write this yet, and to accept that and to be more patient with my work. I'm someone where once I start a play, I finish it in 8 hours. So I'm learning now just the beauty of saying it's okay. Like not everything has to be about productivity. Sometimes it's okay to take a breath. And so to me, writer's block is your brain asking your body to take a breath.
That's great.
Yeah. I agree with Rachel, but just those times when you just need to take a break. I feel like, writing is, to me, very, very similar as an exercise. It's very similar to going to the gym, to working out. And, when you go to work out, I don't, but for folks who do, and they do it, and they do it frequently, they'll, today I'm going to work my arms. Today I'm going to work my legs. Today I'm going to work the this and the that, right? So you don't work the same thing every day. Otherwise, you would that would be bad, right? And so I feel like with writing, since you're only really working one thing, your brain, probably your brain and your heart, and you can only work that for so long before it gets strained somehow. So it's like you do kind of need to have that a little bit of time to rest and think and just be still. I think there's power in just being still. So to not beat yourself up for those moments when you do need to be still, and to know that, there's still other ways that you can be productive. There's ways that you can continue to feed whatever project that you're working on, whether that is research or reading a book or listening to music or something that can inspire the thing that you're working on and help feed you, to give you fuel to go back into it.
I love the way you started out, like when you're exercising. I was like,
I don't. I don't.
Hilarious. Similar to Rachel, I have a pre-pandemic rules and then pandemic. I was always 3 pages a day. If I could just to me, 3 pages is easy. For some people, it might be just 1 page a day. If I could do 3 pages and I keep going, I end up doing 10 or 15, then great. If I only do my 3, then I've met my goal, and I'm golden. I'm happy with the progress I made. And when you think about it, if you do 3 pages a day, you have a full thing in not a long period of time. There was that period of Gin for breakfast and Boggle on the computer screen during the pandemic, and I talked to my therapist and had to realize that just because nobody in my household got sick or passed away doesn't mean I wasn't affected by the pandemic, and I needed to give myself some room and some grace to know that this stuff is a lot. It's a lot, and it's okay that I didn't do it today. Like you're saying, Jonathan, I'm reading a book, I'm listening to this song, or I'm finding inspiration somewhere else, or I'm thinking about the story. And eventually that period ended. And I'm back to, a page and a half a day is the goal. I ultimately am going to do more than that, probably going to do more than that, but I set that goal and just try to do the bare minimum for me. And if I do more, if I'm, into it, I'm flowing, then I do more. But at least I set a goal and try to hit it every day.
I'm sure our virtual audience who is watching here live on YouTube, or you all checking it out here on the record, do they still record things? I don't even know. I mean, I'm still like a tape generation kid, but you all have noticed I've had a big smile on my face the entire time. I mean, not only are our panelists just super smart and fun and things like that, but I just love the opportunity to be dropped down into the world of contemporary Black writers and just getting to sit and talk to them. You know, like anybody who is inspired by the several artists that we talked about. You all are inspiring to me. You all are the reason why I show up at work every day and continue to do the work at True Color. So just thank you all for your breath, your talent, your intelligence, and for all of the tips and tricks and little gems that you have dropped for us today. So I just want to say thank you to our panelists, Inda Craig Galvan, Rachel Lynette, Jonathan Norton. Thank you all so very, very much for joining me today. I want to kick it back over. You heard from her earlier as she recited a monologue by Donetta Lavina Graves, but right now, Taloria Merrick's is going to perform a song inspired by said monologue by Donetta, Not Supposed To. She's going to perform a rendition of Bill Withers' popular Ain't No Sunshine. I reintroduced Taloria Merrick's.
Ain't no sunshine when she's gone. It's not warm when she's away. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone. She's always gone too long. Anytime she goes away. Wonder this time where she's gone. If she's gonna stay. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone, and this house just ain't no home anytime she goes away. I know, 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 I know. Hey, I better leave young thing alone, but ain't no sunshine when she's gone. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone. Only darkness every day. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone. She's always gone too long. Anytime she goes away. Anytime she goes away. Anytime she goes away. Anytime she goes away.
You all, we have reached the end of this amazing, dynamic community conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. It is my job now to deliver a couple of closing remarks. First, I want to just give a big shout out once again to our partners on the Next Narrative Monologue competition, Theatrical Rights Worldwide, and especially want to recognize Lisa Marzani and the rest of the team over at TRW for their just amazing support, the way that they have championed and commissioned, helped co-commission the writers for this project. So thank you everyone at Theatrical Rights Worldwide. Big shout out again to all of our regional partners and the amazing work that you all are doing. I hope that you are in if you are in one of the regions of our partners, please go check out their Next Narrative Monologue competition, and you encourage and cheer on those students as they all try to win spots for the national finals happening on May 2nd, Monday, May 2nd. Big shout out again to Larson Kennedy, the coordinator of the Next Narrative Monologue competition. This and all of our community conversations are sponsored by our friends at Bryan Cave Leighton Paisner. I always say it's good to have a team of lawyers on your side. So we're really thankful for the BCLP family in the way in which they support our work in the community conversations. The community conversation series really lies at the nexus of civic engagement and artistic excellence. So thank you for that. Big shout out to Brandel Jones, who is our director of connectivity. He helped put all of this together. Brandel, thank you very, very much for always working your magic. Our panelists, Inda Craig Galvan, Jonathan Norton, and Rachel Lynette, thank you for giving your time and talent to us today and giving us so many gems and things that we will move here. We are inspired by you, and we'll all, even if we aren't writers, we're all going to face our proverbial blank pages with a little bit more inspiration thanks to you all. Shout out to Taloria Merricks and Taylor Jackson. Thank you for giving us some art. You know, I've been watching those two students specifically and see their growth through our previous monologue competition and the way in which we continue to call them back. And each time that they appear or deliver something for us on camera, their artistry grows. This time with Taloria singing and really, really impressed by Taylor's monologue. I invite you all to not only attend the May 2nd National Next Narrative Monologue Competition in New York City at the Apollo Theater, but again, your regional competitions, Atlanta will happen this Sunday, April 3rd. And I also want you to keep an eye out. I've been plugging truecolorstheater.org throughout this throughout this conversation. Go check us out on our website. That's the best way to stay involved and engaged with all the things that are happening at True Colors. On that website, you will find the re-air of this conversation on our website next week, but also tune in on April 25th as we're going to live stream a conversation entitled Classics from the Stage to the Screen, where I get a chance to sit down and talk to the namesake of Kenny Leon's True Colors Theater Company, Mr. Kenny Leon. We're going to talk a little bit about the work that he's done in bringing work from the stage to the screen and back again. So join us there as that, and you'll be able to stream that conversation live on our website. You all, I hope you are having a wonderful day, an amazing week, and a really great and auspicious start to the spring and to this 2022. Y'all, I look forward to seeing you once again virtually and in person. Be safe, positive vibrations.